Take 3, Tidal Flooding Talk. Who's still with us on this Tuesday evening, the 13th day of March? 3 nor'easters so far this month, 3 episodes of Tidal Flooding Talk, or attempts to get the video correct. So I believe it is now. You guys can comment if it's not, and as soon as it catches up on Facebook, I'll see myself if it's not. I'm meteorologist Dan Skeldon. Welcome to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk.
Hi there, I'm Palma Accardi, and we're here to host Tidal Flooding Talk, which is brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're here every week at the Irish Pub, which is at 164 South St. James Place in Atlantic City. And
the Irish Pub is great. They sponsor us vertically and horizontally, so they do it free, both ways, same price. So thanks for being here. We always bring you a guest, and the name of the show is kind of self-explanatory. We talk about tidal flooding. No surprises there. Sometimes other topics come up, a little weather talk as well. Dr. Amy Williams is joining us from the Stevens Institute, a coastal resident herself, and also someone who's been working with the Coastal Coalition since 2014, attending our meetings and talking tidal flooding behind the scenes and to folks in public, and with her work at the Stevens Institute. What the Coastal Coalition is all about, we're working for you, all of us and everyone involved with the coalition, municipalities up and down the shore, to help educate, aware, save properties, save lives when it comes to tidal flooding. We all love living at the shore, and all 3 of us do, and many of you do as well. And our job is to hopefully, raise awareness about an issue that's becoming increasingly common. It's a way of life at the shore, tidal flooding. So we invite you to post your comments, questions for Dr. Williams, for Palma and myself. We're going to give Palma, as always, the first question on this Tuesday.
Thank you, Dan. So, Amy, what we want to know is give us a little background and how you got started with coastal resiliency.
Sure. So I started out working on coastal resiliency, really just working on the beaches when I was an undergrad at Rutgers. I was doing a summer internship and got asked if I wanted to do a project on the beaches about seaweed, and I said sure, because it got me down to the beach. I worked at the Rutgers Field Station for the summer, and after I finished at Rutgers, I went down to Texas A&M, did more research on seaweed, specifically sargassum, which washes up in huge clumps down there. And while I was down there, Hurricane Ike came through. So as Hurricane Ike came through, my research got more focused on coastal erosion, specifically erosion of dunes and how dune plants could be fertilized by seaweed. And then after I graduated, I came back to New Jersey. It's my home state. This is where I grew up. I grew up about an hour from the shore, but always enjoyed my vacations down the beach and wanted to live at the beach. Moved back, moved to Long Beach Island, where I still reside, and started getting involved in an environmental group called Alliance for a Living Ocean. They're also a nonprofit, so I've been around the nonprofit world for a while, and they do environmental awareness and outreach. And about 2 months before Hurricane Sandy, I became the president of it, and that turned into a lot of work around hurricanes and coastal resilience, and led me to get my job at Stevens Institute and also work as a New Jersey Sea Grant extension agent through that.
You do a little work for the New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium as well, something
Yes.
I've heard about but don't know really what they do. So what's your work? And obviously they're working, for us as well. But tell us a little bit about your work with them.
So the New Jersey Sea Grant consortium, we're called a consortium here
I
in
said
New Jersey.
consortium, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Is that a New England thing?
That's how it was.
Consortium, all right.
I think it's
So you learn.
50-50.
Okay,
Some people
all
say
right.
consortium, some say consortium.
Okay.
But I was more saying as compared to other states, their Sea Grant office is located in one university and associated with one university around the state, whereas in New Jersey, we're associated with almost all of the universities that are involved in coastal science. So we're associated with Rutgers, Stockton, Rowan, and Stevens, along with Monmouth University and tons of others. So what we do at New Jersey Sea Grant is we take the expertise that different people have. So we have scientists that are researchers, and they go out and they do the research. We have our outreach and education people that do extension, so that's what I do. I take whatever research is being developed by the other scientists, and I help to distribute it to the general public or whoever wants to hear it, whoever will listen to me, basically.
Well, we share that in common, whether people talk to anyone who will listen as well. So absolutely. So you started in seaweed,
Yep.
and then you kind of worked your way up to tidal flooding. What's more interesting, or are they both interesting?
Seaweed's definitely more smelly at some points. Tidal flooding is more interesting to me because now that I'm back in New Jersey, I live with it and I deal with it every single day, or maybe I should say every 2 weeks when we have our spring tides, and we end up having nuisance flooding due to the moon.
And unfortunately, we have more tidal flooding in New Jersey than we do seaweed, right?
We do.
We kind of wish it was the other way around, right?
When I was little in New Jersey, you'd go in the water and you'd scream because seaweed would touch you, but in Texas, the seaweed comes up and it coats the beach 3 feet high, 10 feet wide.
Wow.
So once I went down there, I was like, oh, we don't have a seaweed issue.
We just have the tidal flooding. And actually, last week, with those nor'easters, in Atlantic City, we had 12 consecutive high tides with tidal flooding, which shows you tidal flooding is becoming more common. I think that's the most ever in a row. So it is becoming a way of life.
It is a way of life, and where I live is a flooded area in Long Beach Island, and so I have to pay attention to the tides every day to know whether or not I can get back to my home, whether or not I should be going to my parents' house, bringing the dog with me, and how I should live my live. Showing my car. My car actually got flooded this summer by one tidal flooding incident that I did not pay enough attention to. So I can also be caught up in those tidal storms.
Yeah. Next question,
It does affect us all. So, ever since Superstorm Sandy, what changes have you seen with coastal resiliency?
Yeah, you really got welcomed. I mean, as soon as you took your new position, bam, Sandy hit. So,
yeah.
So don't take any more new positions coming forward.
Right, just have to
stay where you are, right.
So, I guess one of the things that everything dealing with Hurricane Sandy was pretty horrific and traumatic at the time, and we really did see some great community assets come out, community members coming out and working together, and groups on the island that had maybe had some history. For those that don't know, Long Beach Island, 18 miles of island and 7 to 8 municipalities, so not everyone gets along. But after Sandy, people decided, we should maybe come together and work together, and they put aside their differences. I think one of the best quotes I heard from someone was like, wow, we see the long boarders and the short boarders out surfing waves together because it's okay. But we really saw so many people come into our community and help out. One of my favorite events was Black Friday. We did a cleanup, and I know you're having Chris Huck here next week. He might actually talk about it too. He was asked, but he was my executive director of Alliance for Living Ocean at that time, and his friend asked him, can you get a cleanup going for 10 of my friends? I'll be home for Thanksgiving. And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll get you the bags and the gloves. And we put online and forgot to make it private. And before you knew, we had 1,000 people signed up for it. And we had people getting together. Brian Farias, who owns the surf shops, he just opened up a new surf shop and was like, yeah, you can store all your junk here and have everyone come here. And we just took over his store for a day. The owners at the Old Causeway, they opened up they didn't even have it was Mud City at the time, they didn't even have that building renovated yet, and they put on a barbecue for everyone. And so the community coming together, working together, and really being interested in what was going on, and that was just such a wonderful change that I saw. But I've also seen it through the Coastal Coalition. A lot of times before Hurricane Sandy, I felt like people wanted to ignore the fact that we lived at sea level. We didn't want to say, hey, this street floods. It could scare tourists away. It could scare people from buying. It could cause people not to want to come down the shore. But now we're at more of a realization that we need to educate the public. We need to put up signs, say where is the bad flooding? Where is it that people are going to maybe lose their cars if they keep their car here and they don't move it? Where is the spot maybe might not want to rebuild? And that awareness coming from the mayors and the government officials in the different towns is, I think, more prominent now than it was right before Hurricane Sandy. And
now you attend, we have behind the scenes, we have Coastal Coalition, New Jersey Coastal Coalition meetings every month. We rotate them up and down the shore. And really, I mean, you're one of the many institutions through many different lines, public, private, that come together. What's been your feeling coming out of those meetings, and what the coalition's trying to do?
Oh, I love seeing everyone working together. I love seeing that something that should have been just naturally done years and years ago is now finally happening. And I'm glad that even though we are, 6 years out now from Sandy, right? Time just flies.
6 years this October.
We're going 6 years in October. We're still continuing the process of working together, joining up together, and not sitting in our individual towns saying, oh, we got to solve this problem on our own. And so people come together, they're able to work on similar projects together and not duplicate efforts, put their heads together and just get stuff done instead of trying to fight for money or try and figure out how to do public participation or public outreach. Instead, it's just that collaboration that has just been so important, I think, to getting things done in an area that is going to continue to deal with these issues, and not just forgetting about them, saying, oh, that was a 100-year storm, and we're never going to see one in our lifetime, we don't have to worry about it, but really understanding the science and understanding what is happening at our beaches.
So you think like something good that came out of something bad, is Sandy kind of waking us up? Because I know a lot of people were like of the misnomer that, all right, we're kind of immune here. We don't get big storms. And ever since then, we've had Sandy, we've had Jonas, Irene was kind of bad. I mean, we've had, 12 tidal flooding episodes in a row just last week, and that was from no direct hits. So, I mean, I think it woke us up, and a lot of your efforts and a lot of the coalition's efforts came out of something bad like Sandy.
I think it really did wake us up. One of the important things is to continue outreaching and doing this education, because there are new people that move into towns every single year, and when people move into an area, they may not see the sunny day flooding that you see every 2 weeks. They may not see that nuisance flooding because they're moving in at a time of year that we're not getting a nor'easter. We're seeing a neap tide instead of a spring tide. I know you went over that a couple weeks ago. So continuing to let people know what's going on our coastline is important, because you don't always see that if you just come down for one day or 1 week at a time and you think, this place is beautiful, I want to live here forever. But there's a lot that you have to deal with. It's worth it. I love it, but I still do have to look up my tide charts, and I have to look up the different reports, so the flood advisory system, or what USGS or the National Weather Service is putting up each week, and see, hey, what's going on my coastline, what's going on my roads.
What do you think that shore communities can do, even if it's little things, to become more resilient?
So each shore community is unique. Sometimes if it's on one barrier island, like with the Coastal Coalition, there's a lot of collaboration that can happen. But every shore town is very unique, so they have to look at their own assets and look at their own issues that they have. So there's not one blanketed thing that we can say, do this and it'll fix all of our coastal resiliency. It is a process that each town or group of towns has to go through. Some of the things that towns have done, they've put up signs saying, hey, this is how high our last flooding was, like Hurricane Sandy. They were putting up there called high water marks. They put them up a lot in Monmouth County, and so that gives people who are visiting or might not have experienced Sandy an awareness of how high the water can actually get. So it's a quick, visual, easy way for people to interpret it.
Well, no one experienced Sandy, right? Because there were mandatory evacuations and every single person left, right?
Every single person left.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So let everyone know how high the water was in
Yes.
Sandy. Okay, I'm sorry to jump that.
Right, everyone left. Everyone always listens to mandatory evacuations.
Yes.
Another thing is there are some great online tools that towns can start to use. They're free. They don't have to talk to anyone like myself. They don't have to ask us to come out or schedule a meeting. All they have to do is go online and use these tools. One is one that I worked on with the Nature Conservancy. It's called the Restoration Explorer. And what it does is it looks at different parameters in a local area, and it'll tell you where are different alternatives you can use to become more coastal resilient. So a lot of people know what bulkheads are along your bay areas, and one of the things that I work on are called living shorelines. So there are ways to stabilize your bay or your marsh areas, but not using just a solid wall. It's instead using something that incorporates both engineering and ecology. It's actually why I got hired at an engineering school as an ecologist, because they knew they needed some ecology or green fluffy stuff expertise up there. So when they look at those types of tools, they can start to get an understanding of what is, where their problem areas might be. If they don't already know, most towns already know where their problem areas are, but they can zoom into the problem areas and see what are potential alternatives that they could use instead of a bulkhead, but instead it could be a rock sill that would be made out of rocks instead of a straight bulkhead. It allows for both the environment to be enhanced along with the erosion to be decreased.
So, for instance, one of our viewers, Peter Bisher, says tidal flooding will never stop, and he's kind of right. A little frustration there, but it will never stop. So he's right in that frustration. It's so bad. Ventnor, Albany Avenues, Black Horse Pike, something needs to be done. So some of the things you were just talking about are some of the things that communities can do. But like you said, there's no one solution because every single town, every town in LBI is different. Every town in Absecon Island is different. Every Jersey Shore town is different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and so, you have different towns talking about the debates of whether or not there should be dune systems or not. Should dunes be planted? How high should they be? That's another alternative that is out there in terms of coastal flooding on the beach side. Beach nourishment is a big issue too in each town, depending on whether or not they got the federal funding from FEMA, either mandatory to get them or there's a decision about it or gone to court cases about it. So I don't like to prescribe one mandatory, this is what you have to do. It's really about looking at your community, looking at your needs, and looking at what you could possibly do in that area to make it more resilient. Less hard structure, so more surfaces that water can permeate through, whether it's using rocks instead of cement or whether it's actually leaving in a marsh area to let that water soak in like a sponge. It depends on what your town already has implemented. We're here in Atlantic City. The idea that we're going to not build very close to the beach is kind of ridiculous. It's already been here. It's been here for years. You don't really see that happening. But in other areas, maybe on the Delaware Bay where you don't have that much infrastructure, maybe being able to let some areas go back to more natural sites. That could work.
Virginia Godinsky, for instance, says we live on barrier islands. Tidal flooding will always exist. And that's not something that I think anyone will disagree. So there's one of two choices. And I think one of our guests in the past few weeks said we can either evacuate the islands and not live here anymore, or we can learn to live with it, which is what we're doing, through Tidal Flooding Talk, through your work at the Stevens Institute, the consortium, and of course the New Jersey Coastal Coalition as well.
Exactly. Yes, we're going to have to deal with this as long as we want to stay where we love living.
Any last minute questions, comments? Palma?
Do you think that your outreach is one of the more important jobs that you have, getting this information out there?
I do. I started out, as I said, working in more of the hard science, where I was actually doing more of the scientific studies and the research, and it kind of left me empty because then I send that off and some other scientists read it, but no one really knows what's out there and what's happening. So I have not only taught at colleges, I've taught at summer camps where I get to talk to kids, and I really think kids are the area that we have to give these messages to, because they grow up and they become the people that vote, and they become the ones that make these decisions for us or take roles in our government offices. They also go home and then they tell their parents about something and bug them about it, and parents don't want to seem like they don't know it, so they'll do more research about it. So I really think the education outreach is a big step, because a lot of times the way that's hardcore science is written, no one can understand it, even the other scientists. So outreach, making people understand. People who live this every single day have such wonderful experiences, and they understand it even if they can't tell us what a neap or spring tide is, but they know what's going on, and their input is really important. So I like to reach out to them, but I also think that then reaching back to the scientists is really helpful.
I always found meteorologists too, it's education. I mean, people want to know more about tidal flooding. They want to know what that neap and spring tide is. Virginia again says, was surprised to learn that during a new moon we could have flooding. Everyone thinks full moon, but no, new moon's just as bad sometimes as well. Mm-hmm. So it is education, it's awareness, and every Tuesday, 7 p.m., we will be doing just that here on Tidal Flooding Talk. You can come on down to the Irish Pub.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we do have something for Dr. Amy Williams. Say thank you for being on our show. From the Irish Pub as well, a nice little t-shirt.
Oh, yay! Oh, I could have worn it. Thank you.
And thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me.
And if we ever get the tidal flooding T-shirts made, well, you get one of those.
Okay, get those.
No, those are in development. Yeah. Irish Pub is great. You can come on down here, watch us live, or again every night on Facebook. Again, I think most of the time we'll come to you horizontally. Yes. I think we got that little bug worked out. Now next week, as Amy teased earlier, we have another great guest tough to follow up Dr. Williams, but Chris Huck, who I've had the honor of working with and presenting to some boards with. Chris Huck will be joining us, a noted marine scientist, an adjunct faculty at Stockton University. Recently worked with Jacques Cousteau, and now he's at Tetra Tech, a private firm. But through all his work, he's doing what we're all doing,
right.
And that's all about resiliency and making life more livable at the Jersey Shore. That's next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Ironically, next Tuesday is the first day of spring, and ironically, next Tuesday, some of our computer models show a coastal storm, show a winter storm, and nothing too spring-like. So Chris may have a few words. You guys may have a few words about that. What do you think? A snowstorm on the first day of spring?
Sure, why not?
Nothing surprises me.
No.
I mean, stand outside with that free water ice at Rita's in the middle of a March snowstorm, or maybe a cold rain. But no, I mean, this March is teaching us nor'easters are a way of life, and tidal flooding happens, as you said, all year round. Nuisance, nor'easter-based, hurricane-based. It's a way of life along the shore. So, any last-minute questions, comments, guys?
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's wrap things up for this Tuesday. Hope to see you next Tuesday on Tidal Flooding Talk.